Welcome back, guys. Happy Friday. We're back with another great episode of The Daily Entrepreneur. I'm Jack. This is James and Josh with the School of Hard Knocks Entrepreneurship. And yeah, let's just get right into it. So, our first topic, Bed Bath & Beyond is on the brink of bankruptcy. They basically just have this Q4 holiday season to maintain survival as a company. And so, what are y'all's thoughts on this?
It's just interesting to see that their back is literally against the wall right now because this is a brand I feel like I really grew up with. It was in the local mall where we grew up in Potomac Mills.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to see that, they have, it seems like everything going against them right now. They have a new CEO, they have an interim CEO, interim CFO. They're just facing debt and supply chain issues. Everything that possibly could go wrong is going wrong right now for them.
Yeah, their stock's been going like that recently, and it's been plummeted in the last few months, honestly. So, I mean, it's going to be kind of interesting to see if they are able to bounce back. They have a really good holiday season, Black Friday right around the corner, so you never know.
To be honest with you, I kind of have a small solution of a today's society solution that Bed Bath & Beyond could implement. And I know crypto is kind of, it's in the sink right now. It's the market's pretty low. But to be honest with you, I think this would be a great time for Bed Bath & Beyond to actually try to build an NFT project that people could buy into the Bed Bath & Beyond NFT. Basically, it would bring them a lot of cash flow up front. It could be for like a couple ETH or something like that. They buy in, and basically what the promise is, if you buy the Bed Bath & Beyond NFT, you have a lifetime exchange for free of any appliance that you buy from them. So if you need to if you buy their NFT and you have like a blender or something like that you want to exchange, they'll do it for free. You can just pick whatever one you want pretty much within reason. Like they could put some more restraints, but this would provide them a ton of cash flow up front if they could have a way to communicate to their customer base, which probably, to be honest with you, probably doesn't understand NFTs very well. But if they could kind of understand them, it's kind of like a lifetime membership program that you get free stuff. This would create them a ton of cash flow up front, and if they hold that ETH and the market goes back up, then Bed Bath & Beyond will make a ton of money in the long run.
I really like that. I mean, I think doing something within crypto would be a great way to go ahead and get some cash flow or just a bunch of cash get in the door. Another thing that I thought was really interesting about their strategy and something that they're pivoting off of is they started for a couple years to create their own private label brands under their company, and they weren't really successful in doing that. So now what they're kind of relying on and their strategy going into Q4 is relying on national brands to bring people in. What are you guys' kind of thoughts on them switching that strategy?
I think, honestly, them bringing in more known and named brands that people kind of recognize is a great way to go about it, since they weren't able to do private labels successfully. Some people just, they assume when they go to Bed Bath & Beyond, it's just a wholesale, that you just go there. There's just a bunch of different brands that people can buy from. They aren't really expected to see that Bed Bath & Beyond private label. And, really, maybe if they were open to bringing in more name brands from outside sources, then, maybe their relationships with their suppliers will improve.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I've always felt like, I've always felt that Bed Bath & Beyond was such kind of like a renowned name in that kind of like home, the interior, like all the things that they sell. I feel like they've always been like the number one leading kind of in that space for soaps, sanitizers, house fragrance, whatever it may be. Yeah, with the, internal kind of destruction of their company and a lot of members stepping down and their CFO passing away, it's kind of, crazy to see the position that their company's in, because if you were to, tell me this a year or two ago where I was in their stores in the Mall of Georgia or out in, near Washington, D.C., and there's lines out to get into the store. It's kind of crazy to think that this is kind of the point that they've got to. So it just goes to show just how stressful it can be, to work in a big business like that, and how hard it can be to stay afloat.
So that brings us into our next topic, where 54% of Americans have said that their mental health issues directly tie to their student loan debt. And that includes stuff like anxiety and depression. And in the study, it says that the average American pulls out, on average, about $32,000 of debt to go ahead and get their bachelor's degree. What are you guys' kind of thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's not really a shocker, because we know that, one of the leading causes for mental illness, whether like that be anxiety or depression, a lot of that correlates from financial instability. And if you're paying thousands of dollars to go get a bachelor's degree, and you're going out into the real world, and you still have to pay your rent, you have to pay for utilities, you have to pay for food, car payments, all these different things. You know, you're young, you still want to have that social life and do that stuff. It's hard to pay that kind of debt off, especially if you're not making a lot of money right away. And so, you know, the financial instability, it makes a lot of sense because people are always going to have that kind of in the back of their head. And so I know that there's a lot being done about that, and where they're trying to, the loan forgiveness that's been happening recently, and that's a whole nother debate in itself. But, you know, it's not really a surprise to me that there's a correlation there.
Yeah, I think it also attributes to a lot of the anxiety and kind of maybe depressive aspects as well. If people feel that they're going to get their student loan debt forgiven and they don't, it doesn't end up happening. So maybe they start making changes to what they do, like their plans are like, oh, okay, maybe I can kind of adjust and not really have to worry about my student loan payments and everything. But I mean, just unfortunately, like not everybody's getting that kind of student loan forgiveness that's happening. And I think just moving forward, a lot of people, I even read a statistic in that article that said there was the majority of people with student loan debt have delayed making certain life purchases, like getting their first home or purchasing a car and stuff like that, because they want to repatch the wound that they got when they opened up in college, that mass amount of debt, and then now they're trying to recover.
Yeah, what's crazy to me as well is just to think about that they pull that money out and there's interest on top of that. And that's just to get your education so that way you can pursue the career that you want. And granted, you know, we can have the debate that, you know, college degrees aren't necessary, but in this case, let's just say, you know, they genuinely want it and they need it for their career. It's just crazy to think that, you know, people have to pay so much money in order to just get started in their field with little to no guarantee after that as well. Because just because you get your degree doesn't mean you're guaranteed to get a job necessarily either.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, I said it. I think I I read that it said. College debt, or the price of college, is rising higher than inflation. And so obviously if people can't, you know, they're having to pay more for just everyday standard of living, you know, they're trying to go get an education, it's going to be even harder.
So that brings us to our final topic, in which Microsoft conducted a study with 20,000 working staff members across 11 countries, in which they found that 87% of employees around the world found that the work that they do at home is just as effective and efficient as in the workplace, as opposed to 80% of managers or executives feel that they are not getting the same work output from their employees. There's been a ton of controversy ongoing since the pandemic and now into the post pandemic era, as far as like work productivity at home versus in the office. What are your guys' kind of thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, I think people got a taste of being able to just like work in a more comfortable environment, which was their home, and they kind of like maybe experienced a little bit more work-life balance. You know, they don't always have to be, you know, on task. Like they can take breaks in between meetings and stuff that they've done, and so you're not always as locked in. I think it's interesting that we had the conversation recently with the Wilco CEO. In Round Rock. Basically, what he was saying is that he doesn't do remote work at all. He only wants people in the office because he thinks that that's how humans are supposed to gel. You're supposed to collaborate with each other face to face in a tight knit. I've actually also read that in a book called The Culture Code that said, the better way to kind of run your environment in an in-person work environment is not everybody spaced out in different offices, but everybody kind of in a common workspace where they can collaborate and just kind of gel together, that sort of thing. So I think that, you know, when you look at things like that, you can see as to why more effectiveness is done in the office. Of course, obviously, you have peer pressure as well, that like you're not going to slack off as much if you're in the office surrounded by a bunch of people. If you're at your own home, as soon as the Zoom camera's off and all you have to do is like type emails and stuff like that, you could be watching Netflix, you know, in the background or something like that. So it makes no surprise that this is a recurring statistic. The only thing that people need to look at is this so detriment enough that it's worth to lower employee morale to bring them into the office versus just that extra output they would get from being in. So honestly, I think every company would be different based on the type of talent they hire, and they need to find that happy medium about how can we keep our employees happy but get the most production out of their work, of course.
I really don't know how I feel about this. And the reason I say that is because I feel like if you bring someone into the office and you have an amazing work environment and an amazing culture, I feel like you will get more productivity out of that person. And like the average, you know, happiness for people that work within that operation is probably higher. But I also feel like in the average work environment where there isn't an amazing culture or just environment in general, the average worker is really not that productive during the day. They're only getting, people say they're only getting 3 hours of work during the
30%.
Yeah,
30%.
30% of their work done. They're being productive 30% of the time. So it's almost like if those people could work from home, they're probably going to be doing the same amount of work that they're doing in the office anyway. So at the end of the day, it's just like, are you getting your stuff done? But I feel like if you really do want to push to the next level, I think you really just got to invest in some culture.
Yeah, and another really interesting part of that article is they were talking about how companies were kind of like responding to that, trying to fix the gap between the employees, wanting to stay home and not coming to the office, whereas, employers, as you can see, the numbers were crazy as far as the difference in how they felt work was being done. And, Apple, for example, they wanted to kind of meet them halfway and say, hey, how about you come in 3 days a week? And they got a ton of backlash for it from employees, and they said, no. Whereas you have like Tesla, Elon Musk sent out to everyone almost kind of like demanding that you are in an office 40 hours a week, or otherwise they're going to assume that you resign. So I think that's a very interesting approach. He's kind of putting his foot down. He's like, no, we're going to be hands-on. We're going to be in the office kind of getting work done. So I do kind of respect that approach as well. And I think ultimately it depends what you're doing for the company and what skills it kind of takes to like do what you need to do, whether you need to be in that collaborative environment or not. So
Yeah, I feel like in an environment like Tesla though, or even SpaceX, it probably is better for people to be in person because that's so innovative what they have going on there that it probably is best in terms of collaboration and getting like responsiveness. You can just walk down to their office or whatever it may be. That's probably way faster than waiting for an email. And speed is everything, especially in that space where they're competing against, Blue Origin, all these other electric companies that I feel like probably being in person for them probably is best.
Yeah, no, 100%. And, we obviously don't know what the company culture at Tesla is like. None of us work there. But in regards to just the kind of like you were bringing up earlier, the average work environment, I think this debate, really the pressure is not on the employees to produce more and to come to you need to come to the office or like you need to get more done if you're going to work at home. The pressure should not be on the employees at all because guess what? They could just quit. We've seen it time and time again, and this keep bringing up this topic of quiet quitting. People are not attentive at work, and it's more so probably due to the culture and the actual, miscommunication and just lack of communication to them on what they're supposed to be doing. And that is an operations issue. It's a management issue. That's a corporate company issue. That is not on the employees if they're not as attentive at work. If you really don't want to have them on board, you think they're that unattentive to their work, fire them.
Yeah,
but
just to kind of add on to that, you brought up it's kind of a two-part thing I was going to say, but kind of first tying into the working from home is that how the pandemic affected that is about 2 years ago there were 15 million new jobs posted on like LinkedIn, and only 2% of those were fully remote, and now even now 20% of those are now fully remote. So it's crazy to see the shift that happened there. But also in regards to the quiet quitting, we're seeing like 50% of people in the last year had switched jobs on LinkedIn, and 90% of that was Gen Z. And Gen Z by 2030 is projected to make up about 30% of the workforce. So it's kind of crazy because, you hear even from older people that like younger people are not going to stay put in jobs that they don't like, that they don't feel comfortable in, that they want to go make more money, they want to evolve. So it's kind of interesting to get that perspective and just see how Gen Z is kind of different from kind of, I guess, taking their own path in a lot of ways.
100%. And the responsibility of creating that culture to keep people is always going to be on the company and who they hire. We've had conversations with people that own businesses that they're worried about young talent walking away after only being there for like a year or 2 years. Yeah. And they're confused as to why I can't get this long-standing employee to stay with my company for several years. The other thing we got to look at is colleges. I just wrapped up over at UT. What they teach, and this goes for every college, this isn't specific, is that when you're young in your career in your 20s, you're going to switch jobs 7 times, in your 20s and early 30s, if that's the route you decide to take. That's what the mindset of this upcoming Gen Z, like you were saying with that statistic of people switching jobs over the last 2 years, it's probably attributed to that you really owe your employer nothing, which I agree with, and then at the same time that if you have other opportunities elsewhere, you should take them. So.
Yeah, I mean, something that I feel like a message that's been brought up over and over again is that company loyalty doesn't exist anymore. And that goes both ways, from the employer to the, employee, and the employee to the employer. Because I feel like, that you hear time and time again that instead of companies, hire within their own ranks for managerial positions, they'll just get someone from outside the organization to come in. And what do you think that how you'd feel if you've been working in the organization 2-3 years, waiting for that next bump in terms of a career advancement, and they just bring in someone from outside the organization? You're like, well, hey, maybe I can do that too. Let me just go somewhere else, and I can get probably more money and advance my career further. So I just don't think brand loyalty exists anymore.
Yeah, if there's more rungs on the ladder being put in front of me to climb, why do I want to stay on that ladder? I'm going to go to a different one where I'm going to be valued more. Because clearly they don't have enough trust in you. They don't see the potential in you to be able to fill that position, at least at that time. And you're just going to be giving more years and more of your time to a company that doesn't see you as just as valuable to fill that kind of role.
That's going to be it for episode 10 of the Daily Entrepreneur. Thank you guys so much for watching. We do these Monday through Friday. Thank you guys so much. Please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Catch you guys in the next one.